Violence against women is something that is as old as man itself. It has existed from generation to generation. A lot of women have lost their lives due to violence against them. They've been violated, beaten, and killed. Children have lost their moms. A lot of people have tried to bring in solutions on how this menace can be curtailed. Recently, in Abuja, drag actually sought a solution, a way to finding a permanent solution to violence against women, especially women with disability, whom we know are the most vulnerable in the society. And so there was a stakeholders meeting where we had a talk show. Stakeholders from various organizations came together to discuss on the piercing and painful issue of violence against women. You know what they did differently? They engaged the men to take the lead and end violence against women. It was very, very interesting and very educative, engaging, and informative. I would like us to stay. And if you were not there in person, you've not missed out completely. Now, talking about how many women or children were violated, it's a case of data. Without data, we cannot have accurate number of persons in Nigeria or persons with disability or sick persons or so many statistics that we will be looking for. And so data is very, very important. That too was discussed. All this will be brought right to your doorstep on Against All Odds today. My name is Doshima Pius Ikiravi, and we urge you to just sit tight and let's roll this boat together.
This is Against All Odds.
Women and girls with disabilities experience even more severe outcomes when it comes to sexual and gender based violence. 1 out of 3 women and girls with disabilities experience sexual gender based violence on a daily basis. This is usually worsened by the triple marginalization they face in the society. First, for being a woman, for having a disability, and for being amongst the poor of the poorest.
It's also a very big challenge when a woman faces violence in the home. The parents, even the family, tends to tell her this is a part of the marriage. No marriage is perfect. You just have to deal with it. If I tell you how your father dealt with me, and here I am today, they tend to make women or survivors believe that this is the normal way of life.
Over the time, people talk of gender-based violence. Nobody has deemed fit to talk of disability-based violence. What do I mean by disability-based violence? If I'm a wheelchair user and you deprive me of using my wheelchair, which is my mobility aid, it's violence against me.
Gender-based violence and disability-based violence. So there is also the need for every woman with disability to know that when she's being touched inappropriately by a caregiver, it is a case of gender-based violence. But a lot of us still see it as just what they can take by the arm's length. It's nothing. So they're not able to differentiate between GBV and SGBV.
Unfortunately, in Nigeria, most incidents of sexual and gender based violence against women and girls with disabilities are not reported to the police. Women and girls with disabilities are often having crushingly low self esteem. Many fear that reporting incidents of abuse might lead to them being abandoned, having their children taken away, losing financial support and care, and increased isolation. Even when these women do report violence, they face considerable obstacles in accessing support and justice.
Parents of children with disabilities that have been violated would rather want to keep quiet and allow it, sweep it under the carpet. Why? For shame that I already have a child with a disability. Now she has been raped. Will I come out and still wash my dirty linen in public? They would rather want to keep quiet about it. Why? Because having a disability is one issue, being abused is another. And then you will hear people around, people telling them, there's no point for you to report. Why do you want to expose this child? Why do you want to expose yourself? Ignorance of the law is not an excuse. Many women with disabilities would rather also collect bribe and keep, that he has settled me. Let me not expose myself. We can go on and on and on. But the issue remains that we have the economic barrier, we have the psychosocial inefficiency of our caregivers, of our health workers, as well as economic challenges that persons with disabilities actually face. And this has actually contributed in a long way in reporting cases of GBV against them.
Differentiation between boy and girl. You know, there was one day in my own house, after eating in the kitchen, the boy left his plate there unwashed. Then the girl, and I told the girl, have you people washed your plate? She went to the kitchen and said, Mommy, she didn't wash her plate. He didn't wash his own plate, his plate is here. And then my husband had and said, is it not girls who wash plates? I said, please, I am a human rights defender. You cannot do that in this house. You know, what I'm trying to say that desensitization belongs to all of us. You know, when you see cases like this, correct it immediately. We might not be where we want to be, but I tell you, we have been doing a lot. The way my grandmother's husband treated her is not the way my mother's husband treated her. And it's not the way my present husband is treating me. And I know that in future, our children, they are going to continue to, fight this case of gender violence.
Strategic male involvement to end violence against women and girls, especially those with disabilities, is crucial to ensure changing harmful masculinity and addressing the root cause of violence against women and girls. Drag, in collaboration with Men Engage, organized a 2-day convergence with the theme Men Unite. Take the lead to end violence against women and girls with disabilities.
Men Engage Nigeria is a 19-member body organization all across Nigeria in the 6 geopolitical zone. So over the years, part of our work plan is to do a lot of trainings, capacity building for stakeholders, for police people. Why most women can't even come and report? You get to the police station and you want to report a case. I've been raped. The first thing a police officer looks at you and, Madam, why they not go rape you when you wear mini skirt? Or Madam, see how your breasts they outside. They leave the issue at hand and then they are fighting issues that are not there. A girl goes to the church to read and then she's raped and killed. The first thing everybody is asking, we are always blaming the victims. The first thing everybody is asking, why she go read for school, for church? Why she go do this one? Why she go do that one? So these are the things that are even fueling and encouraging perpetrators. So next time when such issues happen, they will never come out. Many times the victims will never come out because we always heap the blame on them and stop all of that. So part of what Men Engage, in collaboration with other NGOs, we know that funding will always be a challenge for us. So we work more with partners, we work more with individuals. We tell them if you are tilted towards gender-based violence issues, we train them, and we also train the media because Where this also happens is a lot of stories get killed in the editorials. So for instance, I work in a press house, and if a huge or a popular politician is the perpetrator, tell me, and the owner of the media house is my ogas, is a friend to the perpetrator. I'm here as a reporter, I come there to put that story out. We will keep that story at the newsroom. It will never go all. I tell people every time, as someone who has a media background, I say for every one situation or rape case or GBV situation you find, there are 1,001 more that has not been reported.
Figures at the government and institutions, individual level. If you are a man and you are a friend of a wife abuser or a wife beater, you are a wife beater. Yes, sir. Because show me your friend and then I can tell who you are. So if you can't change the world, that's okay, I understand. But change your circle of influence. Tell your friend you are a wife beater, you can't be my friend. That's wrong. So if you start from there, you begin to change the world at that individual level, and before you know, we're cutting across.
The Converging tagged Do No Harm Conference brings together key stakeholders to address sexual, gender-based violence within the disability and development sectors. To have robust discussions on key issues affecting the SGBV response and make strategic recommendations and policy inputs to deepen awareness on sexual, gender-based violence against women and girls with disabilities among stakeholders, and to strengthen synergies between disability and gender advocates with a focus on male involvement.
I think with ending violence against women and girls, especially people with disability, the first step that we need to take is to understand fully what was discussed in this 2 days conference, number one, and then begin to have compassion on ways where we interact with people with disabilities, and also know that they are first human, and we must treat them with dignity, we must treat them with respect, and then we must do everything we can to always help them to always maintain their self-esteem. It's very, very critical, because when a person does not have a self-esteem, he's prone to all forms of violence, and he accepts this violence because he thinks, oh, I don't have self-esteem, that's why I'm passing through this. Number 2 thing is that we must ensure that all laws that have been passed, especially the Disability Act and the VAPA, must be fully implemented on the part of government.
We recently created a platform where all the schools will have a gender officer that represents the school, so that if there's anything pertaining any gender-based violence, that officer will be able to communicate with the necessary operatives before reaching out to the organization as a whole. Even those that are residing in the rural areas that don't have any idea about knowing themselves about gender-based violence, both genders, girls and boys, we want them to be aware, to know that there are things that are not right. Whenever something is not right, they are able to identify it, even if it's not within yourself. It can be your friend, your neighbor, anybody in your community. So when you sensitize them at this age, they get to understand it better, and they get to inculcate it in their mind, and they also spread the news all over. Then another thing is we encourage them to speak out, because whenever something happens to you and you don't speak out, there is no way that communication will be rendered to you. But when the children are encouraged to speak out, it lessens more of all these attacks.
For us in Men Engage, the key role that we play in bringing boys and men into our work is to make sure that we reduce or address the issue of gender-based violence, which cut across families, homes, and even to the larger society. First, we work in communities with traditional rulers, and in schools we have clubs, where we teach in secondary school, both junior and senior, positive behaviors, respecting girls, okay? And not only these boys, we also engage their teachers. What do I mean by this? Here in this conference, we've actually discussed about engaging families. And in engaging families, we are talking about engaging men and boys. Perhaps we're talking about the father who is the head of the home.
Barriers to full social and economic inclusion of persons with disabilities include inaccessibility. inaccessible physical environments, and transportation, the unavailability of assistive devices and technologies, non-adapted means of communication, gap in service delivery, and discriminatory prejudice and stigma in the society.
This is against all odds.
Data, as we know, is the currency of the future. It is important for informing interventions targeted at persons with disabilities and key to ensuring that no one is left behind.
National population census is not enough to give us the kind of data that we need, because the variables that the population census will be enumerating is very few because of the time constraints and space and all of those other considerations that the typical census cannot necessarily cover. So it is important that we conduct a national disability survey so that we can actually have a true reflection of the kind of national data that we need to support PWDs.
We made in place is about 35 million persons with disability in Nigeria. This cannot be verified because National Population Commission and Bureau of Statistics have not given us that number. Knowing that every day, because of insurgency, bandits, more and more persons with disability are created, including having motor accidents. We should be around 14 million. But that is our assumption. We in the commission partnered with National Population Commission to see that in this coming census, persons with disability are counted using the Washington group of questions so that people will no longer hide their children or brother and sister with disability during the census. With this, we hope to get accurate number.
Research has shown that 15% of the population needs assistive technology and devices, which is predominantly found among disability community. And if they are denied access, it will negatively impact on the economy and health of the society. Stakeholders and persons with disabilities have called for more investment, subsidy, and coordinate modalities for assistive technologies for the benefits of persons with disabilities in Nigeria.
One of the key needs of people with disabilities is what we call assistive technologies. Assistive technologies are those devices or technologies that helps people with disabilities to participate at an equal basis with everybody else. It helps them to increase their participation in activities. It helps them to improve their social interactions with everybody else. For example, somebody with a physical disability needs a wheelchair to move around for mobility purposes. So that wheelchair is an assistive device. Some other people that are hard of hearing, they use hearing aids. All those are assistive technologies that enable them to participate at an equal basis with everybody else. Without assistive technology, people with disabilities, especially women and girls, are often excluded, isolated, and locked into poverty. Now, we have had cases of women and girls with disabilities that try to access sexual and reproductive health services. But because probably they didn't have wheelchairs, there is no way they can get access to the health facilities and the health centers. So you can see that as a result of lack of assistive technology, people with disabilities face barriers or they are blocked from accessing services.
NOTSAP as a technology office and an agency under the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology has an added mandate of promoting indigenous and locally generated technologies. And by this, of course, we have to acknowledging the productive capacity of people with disability and how much they can contribute to GDP and to national development. Of course, it's important that we develop products that would aid them achieve their innate capabilities and also contribute to national development. And by this, NOTAP as an agency supports inventors and innovators that are researching around assistive technologies. One of them is an individual who has developed a cane for the visually impaired, and what we do is try to see how some of these inventions are protected, and also by way of promotion trying to see how we can get investors and even funding for scaling those inventions. So for our NOTAP is we try to identify what those technologies are, and we can only get it when we work with the people with disability, knowing their needs and also collecting information from them as to what products they need. So as an office, it's our responsibility to work with some funding agencies that are funding research and to look at how we can provide funding for research around assistive technologies and also to promote those technologies and look for venture capitalists, investors who will invest in producing the locally developed ones or indigenously developed ones, because comparatively it will be cheaper for us that PWDs use the locally produced ones than foreign ones, and to reduce costs. And like even the speaker said today, you need to address the issue of poverty and economic disadvantage, and one way of doing that is to reduce the cost of those devices that they need. And that's why as an office we are seeing how we can support the development of those devices and also promote them.
Talking about assistive device, like I said, our own is to develop that policy to address that challenge. So the health workers at the facilities now, does the amputation in terms of whenever a case is being, let's say, rushed to the emergency, let me use the word emergency. When there is an emergency case, it is being done in the facility. So at the Ministry of Health, what we do is to develop policies for persons with disabilities by including them, involving them into that development of that policy.
A call was made for all high-level stakeholders meeting on the state government yet to adopt the National Disability Rights Act to do so without further delay. This is important because failure in this regard is an indirect endorsement of discrimination and other harmful practices against citizens with disabilities. It is important for the state governments to make inclusion and participation of citizens with disabilities in governance and development programs a priority, as it is very expensive and difficult to live with a disability without the government's support.
This is Against All Odds.
Oh, thank you so much for spending all this time with us. All hands must be on deck to ensure that we have a beautiful world, a beautiful country, and the Nigeria of our dreams, where we will say no to violence against women, especially women with disability. We need to end it. Men will take the lead, and then women will follow. Also, to have accurate data involves all stakeholders. Stakeholders are me and you. Assistive device, very important. We cannot overemphasize on that. Thank you so much for spending time with us on Against All Odds. Let's do this again. Same time, same station, next week. My name is Doshima Pius Ikirave. Do have a fantastic time. Bye.
Audio Jungle.